Saludos, fanáticos de Prime Text de Puerto Rico. Espero que la estén pasando muy bien después de un fin de semana largo de 4 de julio. Lo prometido es deuda. Estoy conectado directamente desde Hawái con Nicole Pono Correa. Así que una vinocultora que nos va a ofrecer un poco de su tiempo aquí y hablarnos un poco de cómo las cosas suceden en Hawái. Vamos a estar hablando en inglés. Obviamente inglés es el lenguaje primario de ella, así que si tienen alguna pregunta durante el espacio de la entrevista, siéntanse en la libertad de, 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 de someterla y nosotros la pondremos. So, Nicole, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, thank you for having me.
So, welcome. Say hi to the people of Puerto Rico.
Hello. I guess aloha from Hawaii to everyone.
Nice. So let me introduce you. So Nicole Pono Correa, she's a co-owner of Double D Farm and Ranch. Nicole also holds a bachelor degree of science in animal science. Actually, I'm sorry, from Colorado State University, and she also has a master's of science degree in animal science for the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Good deal. So Nicole, talk to us a little bit about your background, technical background, and your professional background, your work going on the farm, all that kind of good stuff for the people in Puerto Rico and also United States, to get to know you better.
Okay. So like you said, I started at Colorado State University working on a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science. I originally wanted to go to vet school to become an equine veterinarian, and they enrolled me in the animal science program instead of the equine science program. And so when I went and spoke with my counselor, they suggested, that I do animal science, as many students end up transferring over to animal science anyway. It's there's a wider range that you learn. And so I said, okay, fine, I guess I'll stay in the program. I hadn't ever done food animal production prior to that. My family, I never did 4-H or any of that. And we had rescue animals for a really long time. And so my thought process of producing meat was very different. I appreciated ranchers for what they did, and I never thought that I would be able to do something like that, to produce animals for meat. And then I had Dr. Temple Grandin as one of my professors who spoke about animal husbandry and how we can raise animals and give them a beautiful life, and even throughout the process of processing the animal, it can be done in a very humane fashion, and it completely changed my mindset. And so I stayed with the animal science program through graduation, and then I went on to go get my Master of Science in cattle production in the state of Hawaii. And from there, I was actually reading an American Sheep Industry article about your Texels in Puerto Rico. And I was like, hey, I think we could do this here. And so I remember emailing you in 2018. And prior to that, we were raising Dorper Mouflon crosses. We were starting a sheep breeding program in order to put sheep under solar panels. And we were going to use them for solar panels and for meat. And then when I saw what the Texel could do, I was like, okay, this will completely change the game for Hawaii. So that's when we started looking into that and trying to see how we could add that to our operation.
Nice. You born and raised in Hawaii, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How was that transition to go to Colorado? Just for the university. I'm from Puerto Rico. I moved actually to Atlanta, Georgia. And there's a wide variety of changes that actually we need to face when we move from our own country. But how you handle that?
I think the biggest, everyone talked about culture shock. It's going to be totally different. I think the biggest culture shock for me was the weather. I didn't understand the phrase that everyone would tell me: if you don't like the weather in Colorado, wait 15 minutes. I really didn't get it. And so one day I went to class, and I'll never forget this. I went to class in a tank top and shorts. It was at least 85 degrees out. And I'm sitting in class and I look out the window and it's snowing. And I like tapped a classmate and I was like, am I seeing things? Like, is that really snow? And they were like, yeah, that's what Colorado's like. And I was like, what? And they were like, didn't you bring a jacket? You should always bring a jacket. You should always be ready to layer. And so that was, I think, the biggest shock for me was seeing how quickly, when they say 15 minutes, they really mean 15 minutes.
Nice. So let me ask you something. I mean, based on some of the good stuff that I read about you, I mean, I can tell you have a huge love for horses, and you have some skill sets that actually not everybody has when it comes to ride horses. So tell me a little bit about your interaction with horses, and I mean, some of these pictures actually with seeing of you in action, actually doing some rodeo things.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So actually, I guess that's a big deal for our ranch because the name Double D actually comes from my mom's first horse ever. Her registered name was SC Silky Didi. And so that's where Double D comes from. I was raised around horses my entire life. I don't know what it's like to live without horses. And I don't think I'd ever want to. And for a really long time, my mom started with that one horse, and we had a pony for a while. He was the best pony ever. I did barrel racing in high school. I did pole bending, goat tying. I mean, anything and everything horse related is exactly what I wanted. My advisor at UH used to tease me all the time because he would tell me to go home and write and stop spending time riding. He would say, you can't ride your horse until you do some of your research. And I'd say, okay, that's fine. I can do that.
What is the picture actually, or the video actually I'm showing right now? It looks like you just won a competition, or I mean, tell me about that. You are actively participating in rodeo competitions. I mean, how is the rodeo life in Hawaii?
It is. I mean, it's great. I haven't done a rodeo in a few years. It does take a lot of time and effort, and so I've put a lot of my effort into our ranch and our sheep. But the picture that you're showing right now is actually, it's not even a rodeo photo, it's a polo photo. A few of us were asked to participate in the Hawaii Polo Leagues. They had a cowboy polo competition. And
Nice.
So a few of us got to participate in that. It was a lot of fun. We were originally scheduled to play their amateur polo players, and I guess we were too rough with the other players, so we had to play each other. I mean, it's cowboy polo, so what do they expect? But it was great. Yeah, I mean, I still participate actively in going and watching the rodeos. A friend of mine does the Make-A-Wish rodeo every year, and I like to go and assist with that. But when I do participate in rodeos, I like to make sure that I have my horses, exercised and ready, and with the intention to go and hopefully win. So it's been a while since I've rodeoed, but it's definitely something I want to get into within the next year, now that I feel like we have the ranch a little bit more under control.
Nice. So your love and passion with horses and your skill with horses, does that help you at all to manage sheep?
Definitely, for sure. I mean, and it's funny, our horses and the sheep get along so well. The sheep actually rely on our horses a lot out in the pasture. If there's any loud noises next door or anything like that, they'll go running to the horses. And so it's been helpful to have the horses there because the sheep actually feel like they can be protected by them. They share buckets of feed a lot of days. Yeah,
Nice.
It's funny. So, and it's helpful with the horses because a lot of the stuff with horses will transfer over, even just reading the livestock, knowing kind of what they're thinking. All those years of horse experience definitely helped me to interact with the sheep in the best way possible.
Interesting. I mean, you might think that we don't need to go over this, but I mean, people probably are asking where. I mean, they know where's Hawaii because Hawaii is big on tourism, on vacation. But people probably don't know that actually Hawaii is actually multiple islands. So tell us a little bit. I mean, without going in really deep about the history of Hawaii, but tell us something so we can relate, to the location and actually to Hawaii. It reminds me a lot to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, we know the main island, which is 100 miles by 35, but we also have two small islands on the east and one small tiny island on the west. So I mean, when we see Puerto Rico, we need to be thinking about islands, not just the mainland. I mean, how that transfers actually to Hawaii.
So it's so similar. And that's exactly why I thought, okay, well, if Texels work in Puerto Rico, they may work in Hawaii too. We're on Oahu. Our operation is on Oahu. And luckily our island is considered the main island, even though it's not the largest island. It's the main island in for shipping and things like that. And so when we brought our animals in, we were lucky in that they came to Oahu and that was it. Whereas all the other islands, like Hawaii Island, Maui, Kauai, anytime they bring in livestock, they go into Oahu and then they have to take a lot of times it's the barge. And so you have the animals flying in and then still going on the boat for a few days. And
I can't believe how stressful that would be to the animal.
Yeah, exactly. So, and some folks will keep them on Oahu for a little bit, let them get rested up and get ready for the trip over to Kauai and to Hawaii Island and whatnot. But we were lucky in that we were able to have them come on one flight and they were home,
Actually, so this is actually a map. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. So your ranch is basically on the coast, right?
Yeah. So
this is what you consider the main island. I mean, tell me what I'm seeing right now.
So actually, this is Hawaii Island. We are on Oahu, so we're a little bit more north. But our ranch is located on the coast, and so we're right across from the beach. And so even for things like tidal waves and hurricanes, that's something that we have to consider as well. Like, what is our emergency evacuation plan for our livestock? Luckily, we are facing a mountain, and so the road next to us actually leads up to the mountain. And there are actually a decent number of producers that are close by. There are at least 4 other ranches that are all neighbors to us, and so everyone is allowed. If there was ever an emergency, it's helpful that we have neighbors and good friends that are we would all be able to rely on. So, but we are right on the coast. I will be at the ranch in the daytime, and if it gets too hot, I cross the street and I go for a swim.
Nice.
And I give myself 5 minutes, and then I go back to work. But it's very nice to have that option.
So you mentioned hurricanes or tropical storms, like actually what we have here in Puerto Rico. You're talking about coast, ocean being close to your operation. I mean, this is quite the same scenario that actually we have in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we just recently, I mean, I keep saying recently, but it was actually 3 years ago. We went through Hurricane Maria, the Cat 5 hurricane that actually it was a lot of devastation in the island. But the Texas did pretty good. We let them outside, instead of just keep them on a shelter, because we were thinking that actually, well, if they're gonna stay in a barn or something like that, probably the barn get destroyed. Mm-hmm. So they handled really good, that event. We are going through drought season right now, so I mean, everything that actually I'm seeing here and you are telling me just basically reminds me a lot, what we have in Puerto Rico. What about any challenges that actually you can tell me right now, like being in the coast? Is there any different having the ocean and that breeze and everything that comes with the ocean? Does that make any type of effect into the animal, or I mean, everything seems to be working really fine?
It definitely gets a lot colder being right by the ocean. And so I know that Texels, have the ability to handle that type of weather, but when it rains and it gets really cold and because we're right off the mountain, sometimes the wind will blow in. And so even when we put the sheep into stalls, we have to kind of try to put up some tarps and barriers, because the rain will just soak right into all of the stalls. And so this last winter was a challenge for us. It was a very, very wet winter. And so we did our best to keep the animals in and out of the rain as much as possible. And then when it wasn't raining during the day, we were able to let them out and go and graze and whatnot. So, but I would say that's one of the biggest challenges. I mean, just the cost of putting things up structurally. you definitely don't see the types of barns here that you would necessarily see, like on the continental US. Whereas we have like lean-to stalls, in the continental US, they've got beautiful barns with siding. And so that, I think that was one of our big challenges, being right by the coast and just being where our location is. I mean, the one benefit is that when it does rain, everything gets green really quickly.
Nice.
And so we are lucky in that it just takes a few days of rain, and we've got grass sprouting up again. So that's definitely a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how you mentioned about how the structures looks in the United States and the mainland, and how they need to look in our side, because I mean, because of the challenges that actually we face. I can imagine having a beautiful barn, like they have them in the state of Iowa, just to name something, and then get destroyed by the wind and by any hurricane or tropical storm. Definitely, we do have some challenges in the way that we build stuff. In Puerto Rico, if it's not out of concrete, I mean, it's probably gone, after storm season. So yeah, definitely our structures needs to be really, really strong. Good to know that. I mean, I appreciate that comment. So let's see what else we got here. Tell me a little bit about the farming. How is actually farming in Hawaii? Cheap farming, of course. Everything related with cheap.
Yeah, I mean, you would be surprised at how many farmers there are in the state of Hawaii. We do have a lot of farmers, and I mean, talking a little bit about Hawaiian history in general, Hawaii was a very strong agricultural state for many, many years. So we do have a lot of farmers. We've seen a recent rise in homestead farmers, especially. So folks who may have one or two livestock, maybe like a couple sheep, a couple pigs, that kind of thing. But we also have our fair share of the large ranches that are, raised cattle. Parker Ranch on the Big Island is pretty popular. I know of Kahua Ranch. And so like raising livestock is definitely part of Hawaii's history. The term paniolo is used pretty commonly out here. It means cowboy. And so it's a good indicator of just how long, that Hawaii's ag history has been around.
Nice. So tell me a little bit. I mean, this is once again, I mean, and I think it's going to happen a lot through the conversation, where I can relate so much of the environment that actually we have in Puerto Rico, actually including the breeds. This is one type of farming down in Hawaii, right? I mean, obviously this is a herd sheep. We can see valleys and mountains and stuff like that. I mean, this is pretty much norm in Hawaii. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I would say a challenge with Hawaii is the lack of land. The video that you're showing is a beautiful example of how pretty the land can be out here. Oahu has a lot less land than someplace like Maui. Maui has a lot more farms and ranches. Same thing for Hawaii Island. But I will say that the land varies. It's amazing how much the land varies based on what island you're on and where on the island. So, for example, on the Big Island of Hawaii, on the Kona side, it's super, super dry, whereas on the Hilo side, it's very wet. And so on one island, you have producers that have to raise their animals in very different ways just because of the difference in weather. And then Waimea is another location on Hawaii Island that has, they've got beautiful land. I mean, it looks very similar to the video that you showed. The grass is always beautiful and green, and they've always got lots of lush tropical grass. I would say on Oahu, Kikuyu is pretty popular grass, and then coastal Bermuda is actually more popular than you would expect because it's kind of drought tolerant, and the animals love it. The other thing that you see pretty often too is you'll see a lot of people feed lucina. It's
producing what?
Lucina.
Okay.
It's the scientific term, and then the term in Hawaii is called haulekoa. It's It's great. It has high protein. And so that's something that you see pretty often out here too. That video that you're showing is a very beautiful example of how pretty the land can be out here. And there is, as you can see in the background with the mountains, people do raise livestock on mountainous area too. So it really just depends on where in Hawaii you end up and in what kind of land condition you have.
You know, same back home. Um, I'm gonna keep saying this, but anyways, same back home. We are about 100 miles by 35 miles, and within that same territory, you will find that we have a tropical forest and we have a dry forest. So you can imagine how the weather conditions and soil conditions and everything changes from one side of the island to the other. So I mean, I can imagine how I mean it is really similar down there in Hawaii. Tell me about we talk about challenges when we do farming or you guys do cheap farming in Hawaii related with weather. You also mentioned in the past. I mean, it rains a lot in Hawaii, right? So how you guys manage that? We all know that actually we want to sometimes. I mean, we want to have a dry soil for our animals, but at the same time, water is necessary for them. But how you guys keep a balance on hoof health for the animals with all the rain that actually you guys receive through the year?
So we're really lucky. I guess it's kind of a catch-22 because I would say we're really lucky and we're also not quite as lucky. Our pastures are very rocky. They are not fit for traditional farming. There's no way that you'd be able to plant nice row crops or anything like that. But the benefit of that is that the animals, even just, I don't ever trim hooves on our sheep. And even like our horses, they usually recommend maybe 4 to 6 weeks for the farrier to come out and trim. And because our horses are walking on such rocky area on a regular basis, we actually don't have our farrier come out more often than 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And so same thing for the sheep. I frequently check their feet, but we've never had any issues with hoof rot. I mean, knock on wood, not once have we had issues with hoof rot. I don't ever trim hooves. I check them regularly, but I've never had to trim hooves just because our pastures are really rocky. And so our pastures look very different than this. These pastures are beautiful and lush and green. And I mean, ours are very beautiful and green as well. We have more of what's called guinea grass. And so our sheep will eat a lot of guinea grass. They eat a lot of halekoa, and then they eat a lot of something called Christmas berry. I'm not sure what the term is elsewhere. But for us, the Christmas berry trees are really good to help with parasite control. Something in the leaves is great for them, and they love the taste of it. So that's kind of what our sheep will eat. And then we also feed them alfalfa hay that we buy from the feed store, along with corn and oats, just to kind of keep their attention. But we've been lucky that our sheep haven't had problems with hoof issues. Our challenges have definitely been more on the parasite side.
So let's talk about that. I mean, what we definitely, and when I say we, I mean we as a breeder in Puerto Rico, we have definitely a lot of challenges when it comes to parasite and parasite resistance in our animals. How we build parasite resistance, how we treat them. One of our biggest enemy is actually the barber pole. It is fine to have these beautiful, pastures, but I mean, having beautiful pastures comes with a lot of challenges too. So how you guys? I mean, tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about your challenges when it comes to parasite resistance and how you guys are treating them. I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
So we have started doing a better job of doing rotational grazing in order to help with that. We definitely keep an eye on our animals, and we keep an eye. It's funny because they talk about FAMASA score, and for whatever reason, I don't know if I'm reading the FAMASA score incorrectly, but for some reason it doesn't work for me. So for me, we only deworm if we feel like the animal needs it. And we will deworm based on their energy levels. So if they look lethargic, if they are laying down more often, if they're not, like I said, we give them corn and oats. So they wait for us when they know that it's time to get their treat, right, of corn and oats. And so if they're not rushing to us to get to that food, then that's a sign for me to say, okay, well, I want to treat them. We use Cydectin, and that was a suggestion given to us by Dr. Aller, who we're really thankful that we got to get in contact with through Nikki and Eugene Fisher. And then if in a few days we don't see improvement on the animal, then we will give a dose of valbazin to treat for liver flukes. And so I would say that at this point, we are probably treating and it's not every sheep, but we are treating maybe like every 4 months, or like I'll notice at least one animal who needs something every 4 months at this point. And
it's really interesting what what you're telling me, and when we analyzed what other breeders do in the mainland in the United States, we would like that things would be the same for us in Hawaii and Puerto Rico, but they're not the same. What I'm seeing a lot in our flock is actually, it's not, people probably think that you just buy a cheap animal and you just throw it in the pasture and then fine, it's good, and you don't need to worry about nothing else. But they do need at least a minimum treatment. When it comes to parasites and some other stuff. We can have the same argument with other breeders that say, "Oh, I never deworm my chicks." Well, that's not the case when you live on a tropical island. We sometimes need to deworm just as a preventing maintenance procedure, if that makes sense. Not necessarily because they have an issue with parasites, but we just need to do it every 60 or 90 days, just to keep them on track. And don't let the parasite win the battle. I believe. It is very similar to you guys down there.
For sure. We faced a really unique set of challenges when we first brought in our sheep. They were very, very young. They were wean-offs. The intention was to fulfill a solar contract that we were going to be doing. And so in order to get the animals there in time, we had to bring them as wean-offs. And so what was difficult was that shortly after the sheep arrived, we had a theft on property. And so I'm not even sure how those folks interacted with the animals, but their immune systems never, for a really long time, didn't fully kick in. And so finally now I'm seeing a lot of difference in our animals now that they are just a little bit over a year. But for a while there, you're kind of torn, because it's like, do I deworm them, or do I hope that they get through it, and it's like, well, am I going to make more harm than good? Am I going to create more parasite resistance in the state? And you have all these thoughts going through your head. You don't want to do a bad job of sheep husbandry, but you also don't want to make it harder for the next producer. And so I've learned for us personally, if I see that an animal is lethargic, I'm going to give you the best hope that I can. And that may not be the best in the long term. I may end up having to cull certain animals, but with the few that we have now, I just want to make sure that they're all healthy and happy. And if we can try to get them, as strong as possible, I just think it's our situation was so unique that it's true. We can't do exactly the same way that the folks on the mainland do.
And people need to realize, you introduced Texas for the first time to Hawaii. I introduced them for the first time in Puerto Rico. That type of decisions comes with a set of challenges that we need to face. And obviously you're working on it. We're working on it too. But we our environment is different. That doesn't mean that actually that the breed is gonna fail. No, the Texas. When you read the history, it has been able to adapt to many different environments. We just need to work sometimes a little bit harder on a tropical environment just to make it work. Just to give you an idea, let's read some of the comments. Javier Lara, he's saying hello from Mexico.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's actually a Texel breeder, well-known breeder in Puerto Rico. He also breeds Catadins and Charolais and Dorper. I mean, you name it. I mean, he has a very diverse operation. He actually imported some embryos, Texel embryos from United Kingdom. And right now, I believe they're 5 months old. So the best of luck to Javier. So we also have, I'm going to read that in Spanish. Sigan así, buenos invitados, saludos. So he's just basically saying hello from Costa Rica. So, so just to give you an idea. All righty, let's continue on. So it is hard for you guys to find products in Hawaii. When it comes like medical treatment, parasite treatments, when it comes to feed, let's talk about concentrate, grains, and all that. I mean, what type of challenges you guys face when it comes to feed your animals? I know, I mean, even probably pastures. I mean, we all know that tropical pastures are not high in protein, like some beautiful pastures that actually are on the mainland. I mean, tell me a little bit of those challenges and how you guys are working through it.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the cost of the feed is what, hurts a lot of producers because of the shipping costs to get all the way out to Hawaii. And so for us, in order to ensure that we have enough alfalfa hay on site, I like to have enough hay on site and have extra just in case. We actually order feed every 6 weeks, which I think is very different than the continental US. Usually you try to put your feed order in for hay and you store your hay for a year. We do not have that option. And so for us, we're actually even lucky to be able to order enough for every 6 weeks. We work closely with our feed store. We order our feed from a feed company called Waianae Feed and Farm, and they're on the opposite side of the island. But they allow us to, they will deliver. And so that makes a big difference for our operation. So we order 6 weeks in advance, or for 6 weeks, I order at least a few days in advance. And even with that, there's been times where, I'll try to order and they say, well, we only have one bale left. And so, they're more than happy to come out and bring out as needed. And if they do have, I mean, at one point we were lucky because I had extra feed on hand, but at one point I think they were out of feed for like 3 weeks, especially like when Corona first started, because of the shipping and trying to get the barges in. And I mean, all you need is one barge to go down and your feed, the feed's not coming in. And so we do also work closely with the feed store closer to us. There are a couple more, but I mean, we try to do our best to keep as much feed on hand as possible, just in case. And then the other thing that we'll do is, so for our operation, so with that tree that I was telling you about, the halekoa trees, they have really high protein content. But once they grow to a certain height, the sheep can't reach them. And so we end up having to cut trees in half, and we've got all these half fallen trees. And from there, they'll grow back short and kind of sprout out. And so that makes a big difference. But the downfall with that is that the horses also love the halekoa and it makes them lose their tail.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's such an odd thing. But so we try to keep the sheep in the pasture with the halekoa. We've got halekoa all throughout. But if we're going to cut halekoa, I'll put the horses out and put the sheep in and let them kind of eat that first. And then I'll put the horses back. So it's an interesting, it's so odd, but that's just what we have to do.
It is, once again, I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, it's very similar to Puerto Rico. We just recently are going to a transition in our feed because of the coronavirus. One of the barge basically is not traveling to Puerto Rico as often as they were doing it. And actually, the big feed producers in Puerto Rico, I mean, they have some key materials are missing, so I mean, right now we need to feed what we can find, beyond pasture, beyond hay, and beyond alfalfa. When it comes to concentrate, I mean, we are right now we're facing some challenges. So, I mean, it is good to know that you're facing the same challenges. I hope we can we can basically overcome them. Artisan Valley, Texas, from Tennessee. They say which you the best from Tennessee. So our good friend James Oller. Hey James, I hope you're doing really good. We also have Nikki Fisher. I know you know Nikki really well. So Idaho, say hello. Right there, Nikki and Jean. I call them. When we talk about the history about Texas in the United States, I mean, we definitely need to be talking about Nikki and Jean. I mean, they are part of history. So good to know that. We also have greetings from Puerto Rico. So thanks for the opportunity of giving this valuable information. Lots of good vibes. So let's say, so you are the co-owner of Double D Farm and Ranch, right? Mm-hmm. The other owner is your mom, your mother?
Yes, Valerie.
Tell me a little bit about the story. Tell me about Double D Farm, but tell me also a little bit about your mom.
Okay. So my mom is retired. She's actually really, really, really happy about that. And so she actually retired a little bit early in order to put all of her effort into the ranch. And so I was working full time for a while there, and she was, doing a lot of the day-to-day operations. So her, it's so funny. I swear I'm like, I swear I like am torturing her because, like I said, growing up, we never raised animals for meat production. She had her first horse. She dreamed about that horse for years. My grandma insisted that she wouldn't get her a horse. And so the minute my mom got the chance to, she got her first horse. And from there, I think it just kind of spiraled. And so we had a lot of rescue animals throughout the years. We've rehomed a lot of rescue animals. And so ever since I graduated from Colorado State, my mom knows about my passion for meat animals. And it's so funny because she's always insistent that, she's not going to get attached to the animals, and she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to participate essentially. Right. And then she's right out there helping with deworming. And, if there's any need for anything, she's in the thick of it. So she's had animals for years. That horse of hers was a barrel racing horse as well. They did halter classes, the show classes, for a long time. And so she definitely has a passion for livestock as well, and for just animals in general.
Good deal. So in Double D Farm, you basically raise animals for meat purposes, right? I mean, let's talk a little bit about the beef. I mean, you guys have a fair amount of cattle down there, right?
So yes, Hawaii does have a very large, there are a lot of cattle in the state of Hawaii. And we are actually working with a ranch. I guess you'd call them our ranch partners. They're Uncle Dinky's ranch, out in Kunia, Hawaii, and they imported some low-line Angus cattle. And so we're actually going to start looking into doing some AI with them. I really think that low-line Angus is a great idea for the state of Hawaii because of our limited land space. And so, and because they're a lot more docile as well, they'll be easy to work with. We are, like I said, we're right along the beach. And so we're working with animals that are going to be, not breaking fences and things like that is really, really important. And so the Brangus Angus composite cattle that, you're talking about, that was part of my graduate studies research.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was, so we're definitely getting into low-line Angus next.
So how many cattle you guys have in your operation on Double D Farm right now?
So our operation currently doesn't have any cattle right now. Okay. But like I said, we are working with Uncle Dinky's to start raising the low-line Angus cattle.
Good deal. Let's talk about sheep and goats. Do you guys raise some goats?
So we don't have any goats right now. Actually, it's funny that you bring up goats. goats are frequently stolen in Hawaii. And so we have stopped raising goats. We did have goats a while back, and we've kind of stopped. But we are where our pasture is located. There's a lot of open land space, and we've had a recent influx of wild goats that want to make friends with the Texels.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and it's interesting talking about parasite resistance and things like that, because I've also noticed that when the wild goats are too close to our fence lines, we have an increased number of Texels who start to look lethargic, and and we are going to start doing fecal testing. We have all the stuff for it, and so Dr. Odani from the University of Hawaii was able to get us set up in order to do our own fecal testing right on site. But it's such an interesting thought, because the wild goats definitely make a big difference on how many parasites are around. Yeah, that's kind of why we're definitely focusing on the sheep. We do raise broilers, and then we're going to start refocusing on the cattle. But we're I mean, I don't want to say we're all over the place, but we definitely try something, and if it's not really working, then we're like, okay, we're going to do this next,
Yeah. So you guys currently receive visits, right? I mean, on your farm?
Yes. So actually, that's a big reason why we wanted to start the livestock program. The state of Hawaii doesn't have a whole lot of opportunities for hands-on learning with livestock, and so it's actually recommended. At least when I left for college, the reason I left for Colorado State is because it was recommended to me, do not stay in Hawaii. You won't get the hands-on experience that you need in order to succeed in the ag industry. And so I purposefully left. And when I came home and I was working on my master's, I was a teaching assistant, and I was watching how few of these students had any experience. Or, I mean, even I had one of them ask me what a feed store was one time. And I'm like, you are a junior in animal science. You've got to know, it's not that, it's just that the opportunity isn't there. And so for us, a lot of what we're trying to build along with our programs, our breeding programs, is opportunities for learning. So the last picture that you were showing, her name was Lily. So she is from the Make-A-Wish program. So we do participate in the Make-A-Wish program. The students that we've gotten so far are children who have a little bit more hands-on, one-on-one type needs than other ranches might be able to provide. So we're really thankful to be able to provide the one-on-one experiences for these children. And then the second picture that you were showing is one of our volunteers. He comes out pretty regularly. His grandpa is a family friend of ours, Kaione. And so that's just an example. I mean, I have kids frequently who know that the ranch is available, who will ride their bicycle to my house and be like, can I come today to the ranch and help? And nice. I'm like, yes, you can. And so whatever is needed for the day is what they have to participate in. I mean, they, if they're nervous around the horses or if they're nervous around the sheep, we work with them, and they, it makes a big difference in not just their livestock handling, but just their confidence in general and their ability to talk to adults. And, it kind of brings out their leadership skills a little bit. I mean, so it's really rewarding to have that.
Nice. So Double D Ranch, it is a family-owned operation, right? So besides you or your mom, who else? What other family members are actively working with you guys down there?
So actually, that's a picture of my brother Louis. So Louis is out at the ranch often. We have a great friend named Leah who comes out pretty often, and both of them are actually veterans. And so they participate because Louis started a veteran program out there through the ranch. And so it's like I said, I don't want to say we're all over the place, but we're definitely not a typical ranch. And so my mom and I are there every day, definitely the dailies. We currently have an intern right now too, who is out there every day, who helps with anything and everything that we need. And then on the weekends, we have our kind of our volunteer days and our like family days. And so, I mean, we can, well, obviously with Corona, it's not the same, but I mean, on any given volunteer day, we could have between 10 or 15 people come out. I mean, it is really nice. And we've definitely had families over the years who have made a big impact on the ranch. We have a couple friends who now live in North Carolina whose kids needed volunteer hours for school, and so they participated. So yeah, it's so random and interesting, but it's awesome.
Nice. So tell me about the game changer that actually was to add these Anatolians or Kango dogs to your operation. I mean, how that help you guys to protect, not even to protect, your livestock, but to make a better operation. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I said, we had a theft last year. The animals were on site for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and somebody was like, had already come on property, and it was during the middle of the daytime. And so it's one thing to, to go to work and to come home and to, to be at the ranch throughout the night and get to hear. Usually you think that livestock theft is going to happen at night, but for it to have happened in the middle of the daytime, like during, it was probably there was like a 3 hour window that they could have come on property right around lunchtime. And so we had always talked about getting LGDs, and we didn't think we were in the place to do so yet. But after the theft, I was like, we need them on site now. And so we were lucky to find Lisa and Nick, who are they're Congo breeders on Oahu. And so it was just luck. The ranch next door to us, Kauailoa, who at the time was owned by Auntie Patty DeSoto, she got a Congo for as like a service dog. So I saw a picture of her Congo and I said, that's a beautiful dog. What kind is it? I started asking questions. And at the time, I hadn't even read about Congos. I was looking into Turkish Boz shepherds, and then maybe a
We're
Spanish.
looking for the big boys, huh?
Yeah. So, yeah. And so we were lucky. We got introduced to Lisa and Nick. And I mean, I'm so thankful for my boys. They just made 2. So they're still pretty young in the world of LGDs, but we raise them a little bit differently than some folks might raise them. We interact with them regularly. They sit, they stay, they have recall. We walk the fence lines with them regularly, and this is a picture of Kodiak. They're funny. They're funny. But so that's how we ended up with Congos, and we ended up with a pair of brothers, which I've now read is like the worst possible thing you can do is get siblings, because then they want to, if one of them gets into something that they're not supposed to get into, the other is helping out, right? And so that's definitely the case. But
I think you made the perfect choice. We have a lot of maremas in Puerto Rico, but I do believe that Anatolians or Kangos, and that could be another huge discussion how we're gonna name them. But I think this type of breed is perfect for the type of environment that we have in our islands, and also with the type of challenges. People probably in the mainland, they need to worry about fox, about other animals or predators. We need to worry about our neighbors, the human beings. And that is sadly to say that, but I don't. I wish I can just worry about some other animal predators. My biggest challenge is actually the security of my livestock and the family members that actually live on the farm, because livestock like these just attract a lot of people, and there's a huge underground market, for animals, like this. So definitely we need to have big dogs that actually will be able to protect,
And that's the beauty of these boys too. We can bring anybody and everybody on the ranch. Like I said, when we were looking at livestock guardian dogs, that was one of my biggest worries, was knowing that we have so many volunteers and so many people come out regularly. And it's amazing how, they'll be sitting on your lap 1 second and a car pulls up too close to the gate and they're at that gate, and their focus is you do not belong at this ranch. My mom didn't say you could be here. And so it's amazing how they can turn it on and off.
Oh yeah, definitely. We used to have a Kango dog, but sadly he died when Hurricane Maria happened, and then we do have a female. So we're looking into probably adding some of the LGDs like Kangos or Anatolians to our operation later on in the future. Right now we are safe, but I mean you never know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Texels breed. So tell us the story. So you were I'm gonna call you like they called me in the past. You were the craziest person to think, okay, let me just go ahead and think different than most of the breeders, and let me try something different. And here's the Texel. How you were able to make that connection on the things that actually you wanted to get done in Double D Farm with your operation, how the Texels actually fit that philosophy and mentality that you have.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, like I said, I mean, it's funny that we're only getting into lowline Angus now because I've had a love for them for, I mean, at least 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. And so the one thing that I appreciated about them is that they essentially will eat less forage and, you get more meat out of them versus the traditional full size Angus. And so when I read about Texels in the American sheep industry news, and I mean, the fact that they process faster than your average sheep, that alone caught my attention because what's the challenges in Hawaii? The challenges are having enough feed in order to, take your animals from, like birth to finish. And so for me, that was a big deal. And it's funny, even now, I mean, just a couple of months ago, we had some folks out and one of the women she does ranching on another island, and she said, "You are crazy." She was like, "Why in the world would you bring a woolly breed to the state of Hawaii? Why don't you get, the stick with the Dorpers and stick with what's been around?" And I mean, don't get me wrong, I question myself on a regular basis. But at the same time, I think that there's a lot of value in introducing a breed that will process faster. The meat is more consistent. That's not something that we currently have here. And for some producers, they have that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting the producers that are on site or that are in state and have done a lot of years of breeding as well. But I do think there's value in kind of seeing what else is out there. Essentially, you're not going to find out until you try, and so that's kind of like what made us test it.
It's funny. They called me crazy too 5 years ago, and here we are still fighting and proving that actually some of the people that actually call us crazy, they were wrong. Texas definitely can adapt to our tropical environment. We just need to work on it. So you introduced Texas for the first time to Hawaii last year, right?
Yes.
So where those Texas came from? How was the process? I'm familiar with the process because I import animals to Puerto Rico. I'm basically need to transport them from point A to point B. Point B means the Jacksonville port in Florida, and then from the port I need to wait 5 days to send them over a cargo ship for a 5-day trip, and then they arrive to Puerto Rico. I mean, how is to send animals to Hawaii?
So it was an interesting experience, and I have to give a lot of credit to Nikki Fisher. She set us up really, really well. So all of our animals came from Nikki and Jean Fisher. And so we actually ordered them, I think almost a year in advance. And, I said, okay, well, I want, this many animals. And she was like, okay, well, we have you down. I appreciated that, it was funny. We never, everything was via email, but I never signed contracts with her until, right beforehand. And it was so nice to work with somebody who I could trust and who genuinely was excited. And so she actually was able to find a hauler from Idaho to California. And then from California, they get put on a, we actually flew them in. Putting them on a ship was an option, and that was something that I didn't want to do because I thought it was way too much stress on the animals. That was kind of a fiasco. They got to California, and then I got a call saying that someone was shipping in water buffalo, and that I guess have something that will potentially put the water buffalo at risk. So then our Texels had to wait in California for another week because the planes only come in once a week. And so we were lucky that Joe Marchese, who hauled for us, was willing to house them for a week. And then they were put on the plane. And then from there, when they get to Hawaii, we had to take them to Department of Agriculture, and they get sprayed down. And you take them home immediately, but you still have to keep them quarantined away from the other animals. So we had to make sure that we had fencing in place where they wouldn't interact with any of the horses or the current sheep on site. And so that was interesting in itself as well. But I mean, completely worth it. I'm so thankful that we went through the process, and I still think that, there's a lot of potential for them in Hawaii.
Remind us a little bit about the challenges that actually you face. And I know you, throughout the conversation, you mentioned a lot of the challenges that actually you face with the Texels. But now that we are specifically talking about the Texels, I mean, tell me about the challenges. How you got parasite resistance. We all know the issues that we have with that, but trying to get them to adapt them, acclimated to Hawaii. What you saw in the behavior of the animal?
I think when they first got there, I thought they were going to do really well. I think that was a bigger worry for me than anything was them shipping over. I thought that if anything was going to go wrong, it would be on the flight over or like on the way over. And, if we were going to lose animals, it would be due to the stress. And then when they got to Hawaii, I thought we were in the clear. It was going to be smooth sailing. And it was completely the opposite. But again, we were really lucky in that we had a lot of help from veterinarians and state veterinarians out of state, and I think the big thing was figuring out what type of dewormer to use, how often, learning. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what liver flukes were initially. That was never something that I had experienced with the Dorpers that we have. So Valbazin was something that we didn't have on site. Even ordering Cydectin, none of the feed stores keep dewormer on site. Or if they do, it's the type of dewormer that is like resistant, that is not necessarily recommended right now. In fact, one of my mentors out in Hawaii, Dr. Jimenez, I think, was the one who told me to not use Ivamec on sheep. And that's still pretty commonly used in the state of Hawaii, and it may just be in the area of the state that we're in, and that's why they say don't use it. But even trying to get the Cydectin in, we went to ship it in, and it took 2 weeks. And in that 2-week time frame, it was like we were doing anything and everything we could to keep them going, and we did lose a couple because we couldn't get the Cydectin in on time. I called multiple producers asking, does anybody have this, on site, please, and no one had it on site. So now, and it's not recommended to keep, because these things expire, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care anymore. I always have a full bottle of Cydectin plus the other, like any leftover from, and once I go through, if I go through a bottle, I'm ordering the second bottle already, just because we've had that issue. And the other thing is if other producers call us and they need it, at least I know we've got it,
I definitely, we use the same treatment we use cyclectin, and we use it in combination with valvacin.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 60 or 90 days, all depends. We use two other dewormings. And the mentality of the combination and do the alternate is actually to avoid resistance from the parasites to the treatment. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to what you guys have done there. I mean, these chips, they look gorgeous. They just need a ram to get bred. So we're working on that. We already talked to you about that. So let's see how far we can go. But you invested on this breed time and money, and I think they deserve to be to be bred, and you have your operation going. So we're gonna try to help you as much as we can with that.
Thank you. We
You
appreciate
deal with it. So right now they have what? Probably it's gonna be a year and a half since they arrived to Hawaii.
maybe not quite that long.
Okay.
A little over a year, I think, since they arrived to Hawaii. But so I mean, they're looking good.
I mean, it
I've
seems
done.
like everything is stable now. I mean, we as a breeder, we learn the breed, and we learn how to deal with it. At this point, I mean, we wish we can go back and have the same number that we had before and start over again. But now we have the experience. Now we know how to handle it.
Yes, I mean, I didn't think that I was gonna learn on site. I thought that I had a good idea of, raising sheep with the Dorpers, and this was a complete different game changer. But I'm really thankful that we had so many people who were willing to work with us and talk to us and teach us, because it was a lot of learning on site.
Nice. So Omar Pejot, actually, he's a Texas breeder in Puerto Rico. He says hello. Um, I wish I can speak Portuguese, but I can only know that person is writing from Brazil. So thanks a lot for joining us. Um, let's see. We already have more than 60 minutes talking. I know. I promised you that we were going to keep it within the 60-minute time range frame. Finally, let's talk about lamb meat. I mean, how is the lamb meat consumption in Hawaii? I mean, do you guys eat a lot of lamb meat? Is lamb meat is part of your food choices for Hawaiians? And let's talk a little bit about the import and export. I mean, I suspect like in Puerto Rico, most of the lamb meat is imported, from Australia, New Zealand, or even United States. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So there's definitely a need for lamb meat. It's not incorporated. I wouldn't say that it's incorporated in like a daily diet out here, but people do want it. They want it for special events. There's certain areas of each island that have a stronger want for it. We did a study a little while back about. I actually did it while I was working on my master's. It was separate, but it was a quick study to figure out exactly who and how much would they consume on a regular basis. And so there's a need for lamb meat in the state of Hawaii. We import tons and tons of lamb meat, and it's mostly from New Zealand. Aotearoa is who, as far as I can tell in the stores, that's kind of where we get our lamb meat from. But I think the scariest challenge for me in producing meat is being able to keep up with the market demand, because there is such a high demand and people want a consistent product regularly, even if it's for holidays. And that's the thing too. We have a variety of markets. We also have a lot of folks who will use lamb for cultural purposes and want lamb meat for that purposes as well. So there's just so much demand for it and so much need. And the nice part about sheep, I mean, see, and this is the funny part, because like with cattle, they take up so much more land space, right? Sheep take up so much less. They can produce more lambs per year than a cow can. And so in the state of Hawaii, where we have less land space every year, there's constant development. Raising animals like, sheep, I think actually will benefit Hawaii in the long run for our sustainability. The last time I checked the numbers, we were at importing 85 to 90% of all of our food into the state of Hawaii, even with as many farmers as we have, even with as many homesteads as we do. But hopefully, this kind of thing will help push the markets forward in order to push for more agriculture, because we definitely need it.
Nice. I mean, we had the same situation in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico probably like 90, a little bit over 90%, I would say, of the meat that is consumed. I mean, in Puerto Rico comes from Australia and New Zealand, and now there's a increasing demand for American lamb, which is good. I mean, in my mind, American lamb is way more better than the New Zealand and the Australian lamb that actually, I mean, we eat in the United States and Puerto Rico. So good to know that. Nicole, 1 hour and 5 minutes. Time went really fast. I told you. I want to say thank you a lot, for this time, for the really nice conversation and all the good information and details that actually you gave us related to Hawaii. It is so good to know that even though we are not close to each other, but Hawaii and Puerto Rico are very, very similar. So we started 5 years ago. We still have a long ways to go, but I can tell you it's doable. It can be done. It can be done similar like it is done in the United States as far as money-wise, and try to make an operation cost-effective. I mean, we are getting there. My promise to you and to is actually to keep sharing information with you guys as much as we can, trying to share some lessons learned because we have a very similar, operation. So I also would like to take a chance now, if you can, to just give us a final message, especially to those that actually are thinking to get into the sheep farming, especially thinking outside of the box by bringing Texas, probably even to Puerto Rico, or just start sheep farming with Texas or some other breeds. I mean, what type of message will you give them? I mean, based on your experience and expertise.
I would definitely say, I said it earlier, you're not going to know until you try it. I mean, that's the best way to learn. That's the best way to figure out whether or not that's something that you really want to get into, whether it's something that you love. I would definitely recommend that if you are not a livestock producer and would like to learn more, to find someone who you can kind of shadow and, help out and see if that's the lifestyle you really want to live. It's definitely truly a lifestyle. I can't tell you how many canceled dinners and how many canceled events I've had in order to continue doing the ranch work. But it's something that I love and I find value in it. And I think that it's really important. And so I would say that that's the most important thing, is to kind of get your feet wet and then just jump in. And it like I said, it's a lifestyle and you love it, and you wouldn't want to do anything else.
Good deal. Nicole, we definitely wish you the best to you, your family members, and everybody that is a part of the Double D Rancher Farm family. We're going to keep in touch with you. We wish you the best with the Texels. I know you have a long ways to go, but time is going to be your best ally. You're going to be proving everybody else that what's doable. You made the right choice by bringing Texels to Hawaii and to bring them. So best of luck. To everybody that is watching us on Facebook Live, thanks a lot, for being there. And hopefully we're going to talk to you soon. Our next guest invite is going to be a Texel breeder from Argentina. So stay tuned. Nicole, I invite you to stay tuned too. So have a great evening, and we'll see you guys later on.